Well, hey everybody, welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. You know, a couple years ago in 2021, Lionel cataloged a 460 Camelback steam locomotive. I got one in a Jersey Central paint scheme, and I reviewed it towards the end of 2021 during the Christmas Bonanza. It was and is a fantastic model. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. I'll put a link to it in this video. Anyway, I guess the Camelback was popular because they've brought it back for 2023. Now, ordinarily, I might not have ordered one since they just did it a couple years ago. However, in the catalog, they offered a new Camelback in an incredibly striking paint scheme that I think you'll agree is absolutely spectacular. It's the new Atlantic City Railroad 460 Camelback, and it's coming up right now on Eric's Trains. All right, let's get this thing out of the box. So, we've got the model number 2331580, Atlantic City Railroad Legacy Camelback number 610, with an OBS date, basically an on-the-water date, of June 26th, 2023. Now, for today's unboxing, from my knife collection, we'll be using this knife. I just got this a couple weeks ago. It's a QSB Canary neck knife. So, this goes around your neck, and then you've got the knife right here. Kind of a cute little bugger, isn't it?
Poor little bugger. He's so small.
Nice micarta handle. Very cool. Yeah, so I almost passed on this thing because I had a Camelback from a couple years ago, but when I saw the paint scheme, I had to have it. And I think you'll agree with me when you see this, why I had that reaction. There's the box tag. Atlantic City Railroad Legacy Camelback number 610, Legacy and Bluetooth control, whistle steam, Legacy rail sounds, fan-driven smoke, and 031 minimum curve. There's the instruction manual. Always good to read this. All right, here we go. And check that out. Just a gorgeous paint scheme. Even the drivers are painted red. It's just breathtaking.
Yeah, he really is breathtaking.
And let's check out the tender. There it is. Absolutely beautiful. So, let's get this on the way out. Man, doesn't this thing just look fantastic? So, because the new Lionel Legacy Camelback is pretty much identical to the one that I reviewed toward the end of 2021, I'm not going to go too deeply into the details and so forth of this model. If you want to find out everything, you can watch that first review, but I will do a brief overview. So, the Camelback is called a Camelback locomotive because the cab sort of rides on top of the boiler. It straddles the boiler kind of like a camel's hump. Now, it does that because the Camelback utilized a type of firebox called a Wooten firebox, which was a firebox designed to burn cheap, plentiful coal, which is sort of a waste product of anthracite coal. But in order to burn that waste coal product, you had to have a wide firebox. And because the firebox had to be wide, if the cab rode behind the firebox as they normally do on most other steam locomotives, the crew would not have good visibility out of the front. And so to combat that, what they did is they had the cab straddle the locomotive in front of the firebox. So you had the crew up here in the cab, and then you also had someone back here shoveling coal into the firebox. Now, while the Camelback was a great idea on paper because it used that cheap and plentiful waste product for fuel, in practice it was a very dangerous locomotive because since the cab straddled the boiler up here, that meant that the crew was riding right above all of this drive gear. So if anything happened with this drive gear, they were in imminent danger. For instance, if drive gear snapped loose and flew off at speed, it could pierce the floor of the cab and severely injure or kill the crew members inside. And in fact, there were several injuries and deaths because of the cab location on the Camelback. So yeah, the Camelback was a great idea in theory, but in practice it was just too dangerous for the crews, and that's why it was never terribly successful. Now, this latest version of Lionel's Legacy Camelback appeared in their 2023 Volume 1 catalog, and these arrived just about a week ago here in September of 2023. So actually pretty short delay between the catalog and when these things arrived at train stores, which is not surprising since this has been done before just a few years ago. Now, in that catalog, Lionel made the new Camelback available in 6 different road names. They did Lackawanna, Erie, Lehigh and New England, Atlantic City Railroad, which is what we have here, and of course the good old Pensy. And then toward the rear of the catalog, in the Christmas section, they've got the 6th and final Camelback, the Fezziwig Railroad version. And you know, I don't usually buy that many Christmas themed trains, and when I saw this in the catalog, I really didn't give it a second thought. However, when I went to Legacy Station to pick up my Camelback, they had the Fezziwig Railroad version on display, and I gotta say, it looks absolutely amazing. It's got this total Charles Dickens-ish feel to it, and it's so beautiful. In fact, I'm actually thinking about getting one. So let's get some stats on this thing. First of all, we'll measure the length, and it comes in right at 16 3/4, excluding the couplers, and about 18 inches if you count the couplers. And let's see how much this thing weighs. All right, the locomotive comes in at 4 pounds 10 ounces, not bad. And the tender should be a little bit lighter, 2 pounds 3.7 ounces, and altogether, of course, this is all die-cast metal and sheet metal and brass, very little plastic, so the combined weight is just under 6 pounds 14 ounces, which is pretty heavy for something this small. Now, as I said during the unboxing, the minimum required curve needed to operate the Camelback is 0.31, which makes this very friendly to layouts with tight curves. And when I tested the pulling power of this locomotive, it came in at 2 pounds 12 ounces, which is pretty respectable for something this size. And by my calculations, with 2 pounds 12 ounces of pulling power, this thing should max out pulling around 30 to 35 cars. All right, up next, since I've already reviewed one of these Lionel Camelbacks in the past, back in late 2021, I thought in this review we'd do something that I didn't do in the previous review, which is to take a look at what it looks like on the inside of one of these things. So we'll start with the locomotive. Now, if I turn it over, you can see what's on the underside. We've got 3 pickup rollers for good center rail contact, and then we've got 2 traction tires on this first set of drivers. Now, in order to open up the shell, or remove the shell, I should say, there's probably going to be 4 to 6 screws. Looks like we've got 2 screws there, and then 2 screws back there. And usually when you're removing the shell from an engine, whether it's steam or diesel, you want to look for the larger screws, like that, rather than the tiny screws, because the larger screws are usually going to be the ones that go into the shell. All right, let's see if that did it. I took those 4 out. And then we've got these handrails. Gotta pop those out. There we go. And that should do it. Yeah, there we go. So right here you can see the twin smoke unit. This is responsible for the smoke that comes out of the smokestack and also the smoke for the whistle steam smoke effect. And you can see, well, maybe you can see, hopefully, there's a little tube that runs from one of these smoke units over to the whistle. So when you blow the whistle, smoke shoots out of the smoke unit through that tube and then out of the whistle. And now if I can detach these wires so we can get a better look at the motor and so forth. There we go. That's pretty much all there is to it. It's amazing how compact things have gotten in recent years. You know, back in the 90s or early 2000s, this probably would have taken up twice as much room. So here's the motor. It's got a little flywheel. There are the 2 LED lights for the red glow in the firebox. There's actually 2 hatches in the firebox on a Camelback, so you've got 2 flickering red LEDs. And then this is the circuit board and stuff for the motor driver board and the smoke unit control and stuff like that. There's no soundboard here because the sound is back in the tender. And now we'll just reconnect all this stuff. I like to open up these locomotives if I can during these videos. However, This is not something you should be doing if you are an amateur and if you've never worked on a locomotive before. I mean, you can do it, but you just need to be very careful. It's not something that you should just do willy-nilly if you don't have any experience, because if you connect the wrong wires or create a short or anything like that, you can fry the electronics and destroy a very expensive and very beautiful locomotive. I've done this about 1,000,000 times, so I'm pretty familiar with where stuff goes, but if you're not, don't press your luck. The hardest part is getting these little rails back where they go. You want to get them back in there without scratching stuff or bending stuff. That's always the trick. Okay. Now we'll put those 4 body screws back in. And when you do this, you want to make sure you're not pinching any wires. Always check for pinched wires, because that can destroy a locomotive as well. You pinch a wire, you create a short, you power on the locomotive, and there's a big puff of smoke. Something blows inside, you smell burned electronics, and your locomotive is now a very expensive paperweight. All right, now we'll check out the tender. So same deal with the tender. There's going to be anywhere between 4 and 8 screws. It looks like we've got a screw on each corner. And should lift up. There's 1 wire for the lighting, for the backup light. And there we go. Very simple. Again, in recent years, things have gotten so compact. So that's the soundboard there. And then you've got the speaker with the enclosure to give you a little bass. Pretty cool. All right, the last thing we're going to do before we start this thing up is... So once again, for BFIMO, I'm going to pick the paint scheme, and it seems I've been doing that a lot lately, and well, it's because Lionel has been coming out with a lot of locomotives with really cool paint schemes, and well, I mean, look at this. Need I say more? This thing is absolutely gorgeous, just an incredible paint scheme. I mean, really, it's the main reason that I bought it. All right, now comes the fun part. Let's go ahead and start this thing up.
This is the Art Master. Get us set up running. The train will be ready at 17:30. Over. Copy that, dispatcher. Standing by. Out.
So like all legacy steam locomotives that Lionel is making these days, this comes with 5 different whistle tones. My favorite is whistle number 1. Let me know which one is your favorite. And here are the 5 bell tones. Here's a shot of those double glowing fireboxes I mentioned earlier. Those look so cool. And this locomotive does come with the bicolor classification light feature, which means you can change the classification lights from green to white to off. Here's the cylinder steam sound. And here's the sound of water being added to the tender. And here's the sound of coal being added to the tender. And lastly, here's a sampling of some of the crew talk sounds.
Dispatcher, I'm looking at that block signal. Can we move? Over. Need to hold you. Hold for your signal. Out. Safeties are lifted. Ease off the cold till we get a signal. Train orders say hold inside until 44 clears, and we can take the main. You should be through any minute. Ash pans are empty.
Okay, we're ready to move it out. Now, when I reviewed the Jersey Central Camelback, I ran it with freight cars, so I'm going to run this Camelback with passenger cars. I don't have any Atlantic City Railroad passenger cars, so I'm going to run this one with my Strasburg passenger cars. Anyway, let's move it out.
Dispatcher, I'm made up. Can I depart? Over. Clear to proceed east from where you stand to track speed. Out. Going off duty. Have a good one. Out.
All right, so there you have it, Lionel's newest 3-rail O-scale Camelback locomotive. This thing is just great, and as I've said throughout this video, it looks absolutely amazing. Now, if you want to get one of these for yourself, the retail price actually isn't that bad, all things considered. It's right at $700, and yeah, that's a lot of money, but when you consider this is a high-end legacy steam locomotive, it's not an entry-level model, and you also consider the times we're in, 2023, $700 for this actually isn't that bad and is relatively affordable for this segment of the hobby. Lionel does make much more affordable entry-level items. I just reviewed one a week ago, the 060T locomotive that's around $350, and they sell stuff that's even cheaper than that, so you don't have to spend a ton of money in this hobby. But for the upper end stuff, $700 really isn't that bad, trust me. Now, that is the full retail price. If you go through a good Lionel dealer, you should be able to get a decent discount off that retail price. And as always, if you're looking for a good Lionel dealer, try my favorite train store, which is Legacy Station. You can find them on the web at legacystation.com or give them a call at 770-339-7780. If you'd like to support this channel, I would greatly appreciate it. That can be done through Patreon at patreon.com/ericstrains. Patreon supporters get all sorts of benefits and perks, and you can read about those perks on my Patreon page. I'd like to put a big thank you out there to all of my current Patreon supporters. Your support means the world, not only to me, but to the future of this channel. And an extra super big thank you goes out to my premium tier Patreon supporters. You'll see their names at the end of this video. Lastly, if you'd like to pick up some Eric's Trains merch, t-shirts, coffee mugs, stuff like that, if you look below this video, you'll see some items listed. If you click on one of those, it'll take you to my online store, and you can shop around and get whatever you want. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. That's going to do it for now. I'm Eric Siegel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.